In also this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, we're going to show you the ugly face of underdevelopment in the hinterlands of the Republic of Cameroon. Plus, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for the immediate liberation of Mali's president and prime minister. Both men have been detained by soldiers. And we begin with one of our lead stories, in which we're going to show you the underdevelopmental challenges hitting several parts of the Republic of Cameroon, notably the hinterlands, but also the major cities. Inadequate supply of social amenities, as well as poor road networks, are some of the major problems that the population in the northwest and southwest regions and in other parts of the country are facing as a result of poor governance, according to some experts, analysts, critics, and observers. The government for the past decades have failed to ensure that the people's living conditions are improved. And in this newscast, we're taking you to a case in point, Biuha, in the Nyong and Kele Division, Central Region of the Republic of Cameroon, with Immaculate Fogwe.
1,068 bags of illegally imported sugar has been seized in Kuseri by custom officials of the Special Unit Alcomi 3.
This sugar came from a neighboring country, and the entrance of Cameroon, they had to declare flour. The vehicle left from Fotokol to Kuseri is on the way at the entrance of Kuseri that our intelligence service discovered that it was instead sugar.
It was during the regular patrol that the sugar was seized. The owner of the 1,068 bags of sugar lacked the necessary documents to import sugar into the country. Such documents could only be delivered by the Minister of Trade.
We have to inform the hierarchy for the hierarchy to take a decision. So we are still waiting for the decision of our hierarchy. These goods are impounded. It's in our offices and in Kuseri.
The custom officers are now calling on business operators to always respect legal procedures to import goods into the country.
That was rather a report there by Smart Njiken Gebre on the custom officials in the far north region of the country who have impounded several bags of illegally imported sugar into the country. And now we take you to Biua, a locality in the Nyong and Kele Division, Central Region of the Republic of Cameroon. And there we're going to show you the ugly face of underdevelopment, the picture of underdevelopment challenges affecting the hinterlands in the Republic of Cameroon, but also the major cities. Details with Immaculate Fogwe.
Limited financial means has made the Biua Council unable to give the town a new facelift. Biua is located in the Nyong and Kele Division, Central Region of Cameroon. The town is in need of roads, bridges, hospitals, electricity, potable water, and other social amenities. During the installation ceremony of the newly elected mayor of Biua and other municipal authorities, they all promised to put in their best in order to better the living conditions of the population.
Nous avons mis en place un système de pilotage.
My team have put in place a system that will help the council achieve most of its goals. We plan tackling the major problems, which are electricity, potable water, and bridges.
Les écoles.
Apart from underdevelopmental challenges, the population of Biua suffer from repeated attacks carried out by bandits during the day and at night. The outstanding efforts of some security officers to counter the activities of the men of the underworld was recognized Paul Henry Genge, the mayor of Biowa, and his team promised to engage the spirit of living together and the quest to resolve the problems of the people as top priority.
Immaculate Fogwe reporting there, and the problem is even more acute in the crisis-stricken regions of the country, including the northwest and southwest regions, where development efforts of local authorities and even the central administration hampered by the security challenges emanating from the close to 5-year-long armed conflicts in those two regions. Several parts of the two regions, the northwest and southwest regions, are not accessible for persons wanting to carry on with some developmental projects. And the images you're seeing there are journalists who are being trained in the town of Douala on risk communication as far as zoonosis is concerned. We're talking about the transmission of diseases from animals to human beings and from human beings to animals, and the zoonosis program has brought together the journalists in order to enhance communication on the risk involved in the relationship between animals and human beings. Many health challenges and diseases emanate from contacts between human beings and animals, and this is why they are training the media professionals to be able to communicate well to help the population in order to avoid or mitigate the risk of transmission of diseases from animals to human beings and from human beings to animals as well. This to enhance animal and human health in the country. Now take a listen to one of the officials who took part in that meeting, in that training, a meeting of media professionals here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, today. Take a listen.
Reinforce and build more capacities in the domain of risk communication and community engagement around zoonosis. Because zoonosis a serious item regarding health risk, because at least or most than 75% of human illnesses or diseases are due to animal contamination. So it's our aim today is to reinforce capacity of all the actors, because we are talking of a one health system. That means we engage human health, animal health, and also environmental health, and we need all the actors involved in those different sectors to work together and to be more involved as far as communication, risk communication, and to engage our communities to also play their roles, to be informed, sensitized on how to prevent diseases and how to manage in case of emergency the situation, to limit the propagation of the disease. And as we know now, we are facing diseases like COVID. We have other diseases like salmonellosis, rabies. Yeah, those are diseases developing in our environment. So it's important for actors to be aware of those potential emergencies and be capacitated to act and to communicate and to give good information to the population in order to have a population in good health.
That was Dr. Virginie Ono, one of the health professionals training journalists in a workshop here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, on zoonosis, the transmission of sicknesses from animals to human beings and vice versa. Now we're going to talk about regional integration within the Central African sub-region. Officials of the Central African Economic and Monetary Community are meeting here in Cameroon's economic capital in their third steering committee meeting, and they are examining the projects that are expected to enhance regional integration within the sub-region, integration between member countries of the sub-region. And the permanent secretary of CEMAC, Professor Michel C. Njena Wembo, said that enormous significant progress is being made, that implementing some of the projects that will enhance or speed up the integration process between countries of the Central African sub-region. For greater details, here's an extract of what he told Innocent Abega.
Sit down, study the project, and see the way forward. Way forward on a financial point of view. We have to consider the technicality of the project and adopt a program for the realization and implementation on the field. One thing is to organize a conference. We did organize an international conference in Paris. Another thing is to make sure that the files are ready, that the steps and the measures are taken, so that we can go back to the international financing institution, present solid projects, and make sure that we start the project on the field for the interest and for our population. Because we are not talking just theory. We have to implement this project, and the project has to become realities. That's why I'm saying that 2 will start this year.
And we ask him to give precisions on some of the projects, notably the 2 projects that will be implemented very soon. And this is what he told us.
Projects are construction of the university, Congo, we call it Congo Cameroon University. That project, normally, we have no problem. We have the electrical interconnection between Chad and Cameroon. We can consider that everything is done. Now, 2 other projects are in the pipe. And normally, after the last mission by ADB, by the Bank of Development of Central Africa, by Afrexim Bank, we should be in the position next year during our meeting to announce that the project will start. Then we have 3 other projects. We are working on those projects with our partners, with the interested states. It's not a job done only by PrepSEMAC or by CEMAC. We are all interested, our central bank, African Development Bank, also the World Bank, to make sure that in 2 years we will be in the position to announce to our population that the project will start.
Now, before we continue with news across the African continent, we bring into you updates on some individuals who are accused to have set ablaze a building in Limbe in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Investigations had been going on, and that was just one of the recent arson-related fire incidents recorded in the southwest region as well as in the northwest region of the country, where there has been close to 5-year-long armed conflict going on. And Davidson Maimo is on the line to Limbe with updates. Davidson.
This is the structure allegedly put ablaze by a woman purported to be the wife of a traditional ruler in Mutengene, on grounds that a lady having an affair with a husband is living in one of the apartments. What transpired between the 2 ladies on Thursday the 20th of May is what took Equinoxe TV team to this neighborhood known as Quarter 30 behind the amusement park at Bonadikomo Maifo in Limbe.
Around 4:30 in the evening. So just hear a shout for Quarter, house the bonfire. So like the Quarter head, I have to rush down there to find out what's going on.
It happens that one lady from Mutengene came down with some boys and they set the house ablaze because of marital issues.
The lady told me that it was Ambanya. Ambanya is the one who put the fire in her bedroom. And the brother went to the kitchen side and opened the gas bottle. I said, "But what, do you have any problem with your Ambanya?" She said, "No." "Do you know the Ambanya?" She said, "Yes."
Many are questioning, why did she not attack the lady rather than putting the house on fire? Some of the opinion that she must have thought the house is owned by the husband.
The lady was renting. The house is owned by one Mr. Yena, who is working in the SDO's office.
Or probably she had more grievous intention than just burning the house.
The lady that was in the house, they tried to keep him on tack that he should sit on the floor. So when the flames were too high, they decided to release the lady.
Because the lady wanted to even burn the children inside the house. So it was just, I should say, lucky or what? Because there's a story building behind her. There are workers working inside that story building. They are the one who even saved those children from that flame.
Eyewitness account holds the purported chief wife came with two men on a bike. The action has been condemned in its totality by women within the neighborhood.
A man is normal to have so many women, but you have to wait your own husband in your own house. And you don't go to take any action which is not good.
Holy a man, no hold the woman. Now the man go find the woman, nobody the woman go find the man.
Because disgrace all the women. Yes, for me. I wonder they should put that woman in the fire so that all the women should learn. So that is very bad.
If I be a man, because I for glad. I don't like for be woman because they cannot see so na disgrace. I don't shame for a chance. I don't shame.
It is equally alleged the said chief is having two children with the supposed concubine and was to officially marry her this May.
She had two children with her man, and if you see the children, they will not even tell you about, because the resemblance is so.
I say the man who married that girl the month so.
Sources say security forces have opened investigation into the incident, while the purported chief wife and the two men who accompanied her are alleged to be on the run.
Now, in news across the African continent, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres demands the immediate release of the President and Prime Minister of Mali who have been detained by soldiers. President Bandao and Prime Minister Mokhtar One were driven by soldiers to a military camp near the capital Bamako. The two men had been leading an interim government which took over after a military coup August 2020. They were detained just hours after a government reshuffle in which two army officers who took part in the coup were replaced. Defense Minister Suleiman Doucouré had also reportedly been detained. The African Union, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, the European Union, and the United States of America have also condemned the arrest, saying Mali's top politicians must be released without any preconditions. Coming up next, Talking Point.
Transitional government for 1.5.
Our guest today, Professor or Dr. Ndongwi Peter, CEO of Pan-African Organization for Research and Protection of Violence on Women and Children, is joining us from Accra, Ghana. You're welcome. Our guest, Dr. Ndongwi Peter, CEO of the Pan-African Organization fighting against violence against women, and of course also working for the development of the African continent, is joining us there from Accra, Ghana, and we're going to be talking about the African Liberation Day, and of course he is joining us from Bolgatanga in the Upper East region of Ghana, close to Burkina Faso. Doctor, you're welcome.
Happy to be on your program. Good evening to every listener of your program in Cameroon and across Africa and the world. Thank you for
right. Today is
inviting
being
me,
observed across the continent as African Liberation Day, marked every 25th of May, which is an annual event held since 1963 to celebrate the determination of the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. For more on this, Doctor, tell us what can we say about efforts of African nations and the continent at large to liberate itself from foreign domination today, many years after many of the African countries, why not all of them, gained independence from their former colonial masters?
Yeah, if you look at what is actually happening in Africa, especially among young Africans, you notice that there's a lot of call for the total independence of African countries. It's not just the type of independence, political type of independence, but actually economic independence. And not only in the economic independence, but also we have to free ourselves from the mental slavery that has been putting us down. And these are some of the reasons why you see a lot of networks and a lot of group of young Africans coming up here and there, preaching about African unity, making sure that there should be this aspect of boundaries should be taken away, and common African passport should be established so that we should be able to grow. Like what you see in the European Union. I believe that if people are aware of the fact that this aspect of common passport started in Africa in the days of Nkrumah, but it was taken over by the Europeans, and they are now the ones who are actually enjoying it. But we Africans, we always, because of political reasons, when we come up with very lofty good ideas, they are always being pushed behind. And recently, all of us are aware of the fact that there is this African free trade, the AfTA, that with the headquarters in Accra, Ghana, and it is for the African continent. Out of the 55 African states, 54 are signed. But if you look at the AfTA agreement, has been ratified so far by 31 out of the 54 countries. So you start asking yourself the question, why is it that other African countries are still behind? But if we are talking about free trade, it should not just be a political type of slogan. It should be actually something that should be practically implemented. Like people should, like if we have to actually undertake free trade, there should be this common African passport. That it should not be like Cameroonian passport, Ghana passport, this and that. We should have a passport like what you have in the European Union, that people should be able to accept it and allow the free movement of goods, people, and services across Africa. That will be able to, ignite development, bring a lot of much about growth, and so many things will happen in Africa. And if we don't free ourselves from our political or from our own slavery, from the colonial masters, it's going to be a difficult thing. But I have been trying to, with many African leaders and with many African young people across different countries in Africa, we've been pushing this agenda of free African one passport for all Africa. But the issue is, how do you actually establish it? And we believe that the president of Rwanda and one of the presidents of Africa, they were the first personalities in Africa to have the African passport. But today, that passport is not anywhere to be found. We are still having all the hindrances of moving. Coming to Ghana, I have to obtain a visa to enter Ghana. I have to obtain a visa to enter this country. Whereas with the one African passport, we should be able to move freely. If you look at the CEMAC passport, that's what we have. It is even sometimes very difficult for you to move with that same passport across CEMAC countries in Central Africa. So these are some of the hindrances that are actually responsible for our on that development, and we are not really growing. But I
want to talk a little more about that, notably concerning regional integration efforts in on the African continent, and precisely in the Central African sub-region, where it is not yet very effective. But before that, you mentioned something, mental slavery. What exactly are you referring to when you say that Africans maintain in a kind of mental captivity?
Yeah, but if you look at our various countries and exactly how we operate in different African countries, you see we are still in one way attached to our colonial masters. They just gave us political independence, not actually economic independence. You look at different African countries, you see they are still attached to their colonial master, like the French-speaking countries. They are more attached. France is still having a lot of grip on all the French African countries. And it is very difficult for those countries to quickly just grow. I give you, for example, if France has no timber, has no forest, but today France is the #1 supplier and producer of timber, where are they getting the wood from? Is it not from the Central African country, from the Congo Basin and so on, and including Cameroon? So these are some of the things that we are actually still tying ourselves. So we want to free ourselves from this type of mental slavery by actually saying that we have the power to control our economy. We have the power to choose our government, our leaders, without so much interference from the colonial masters. We should have the will, the zeal to be able to decide how we should live, rather than over depending on so many people. Look, even today, it is very difficult for the African common passport to be established, because if you ask people, say there's no funds, there are no resources for that. But I keep asking myself, what are funds and resources that we don't have in order to establish it? You see, it is just lack of political will and lack of that aspect of saying that we should be seeing ourselves as Africa. We should work for the best interest of Africa, because if Africa become one, you know the reason. The whole world will depend on Africa. If you look at the map of the world, some people will always think that Africa is the smallest continent. Africa is the biggest continent in the entire world. And we have all the natural resources embedded in Africa. We are all aware of that. The fact, look at Congo today with coltan, and that's one of the big the minerals that is being used to produce mobile phones and electronics. But Congo is suffering a lot, worse than any other country. The countries that are actually extracting the coltan and so on are using, they are more richer and better than Congo. But get to Congo, you see how it is today. All of us are aware of the fact that because of that, there's a lot of war in that country, and it will never be stable for many, many years. Why? Because the resources are embedded in that country and in Africa, and so our colonial masters will not really want to allow us to have that independent, that economic independent, we should be able to decide and determine how we should be able to live and govern ourselves. That's one of the challenges. And so
Pan-Africanists are blaming, other Pan-Africanists are attributing the poverty-stricken, so to speak, situation of the African continent. Many African countries where citizens are living below the poverty line to what is qualified as the quest for wealth and borrowing strategy adopted by many African countries and their leaders, who are always rushing to the West to beg for money, rushing to the West to borrow, rushing to America to borrow, rushing here and there to borrow money all the time to finance projects, sometimes to fight health challenges like the one that we have now, the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, that is really true, because that is where we still have to, the person who gives you the aid or whatever, there are a lot of strings attached to it. So it is not just given for free. It is just, there are a lot of strings attached to it, and you see they have a lot of structural adjustment program. You have to do this and that. But if we tend to rely, I give you a typical example of Magufuli, the late president of Tanzania, whom we all are aware that within the past 4 years, he was able to rely on his domestic revenue and so on to be able to change Tanzania to become what it is today. So I ask myself the question, why is it that other African countries, like, let's look at Cameroon is rich, look at Ghana is rich, look at Nigeria is rich, but why is it that we keep on turning ourselves to borrow when we have so many minerals embedded in Africa? In our country, we have timber, but we still have schools that are under the tree. We still have schools without benches. We still have this. Why? Because we are not actually, seeing the essence of, doing what is meant for us. And because of that, our people turn to suffer. Okay, if you turn to borrow something from me, you are one thing I would always tell somebody is that if you always want people to remember you, borrow somebody that person money or whatever. And if you are not able to pay, that person will keep on remembering you, because all through his life, he will be thinking that you are coming to ask for that money. Look at the issue in Africa. We borrow to an extent that even China, that in those days, in the 70s, I remember, we were able to be shipping and providing rice from countries like Cameroon to support China. You know that. But today, China is the one feeding the world. What has been the reason behind China just becoming what they are today? is something that we need to learn. What is the type of education we are passing across our children, in schools, in the secondary schools, primary, universities, and so on? What type of education is? If we don't change our educational system to go towards that type of educational system that should be able to be producing, a lot of goods and services rather than depending on finished products from other countries, we're going to be finished. And we will continue to be borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing till we will even one day sell all our countries and so on in Africa, and for people to come and take over. Of course, they want that you people should be, Africa should be in debt, because as long as we are in debt, they will continue to control us. We will continue to be subjected under the colonial rules, under new colonization is always there. And for that reason, there is a need for African leaders to actually rethink about the approach they are using. Look at when I'm just talking about AFTA, and then after there's a free African trade which is really existing. But is it really going to succeed? That's the question we're asking. When we look at the 100 days of it, we look at so many things that is actually happening. How is it going to succeed if the people cannot actually freely move? If they cannot freely move, if goods can move, but okay, what about me? What about me going to going to South Africa to go and provide services in a company in South Africa without passing through a lot of hurdles like checks and balancing or passport control and blah, 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 and so on, that restrict the movement, without you paying so much, a lot of visa fees to move here and there. So these are some of the things that we have to think the way we are, educating our people, the way we are doing in order. So our leaders need to think. They have to sit back and look at it very well. What is responsible for the struggling growth of Africa? Because we're actually struggling, and it is because we lack that interest. We don't really see ourselves to be working for the good of Africa. After all, these people, this country is being suspicious of the other one. This is actually true, because normally if you look within the French-speaking countries, you look between the French-speaking, like what was happening before the ECO. You see, these countries, the French leaders will go to Cote d'Ivoire, or they go to this country, and so they put you, they influence these African leaders against these other African leaders, and so on and so forth. I ask you the question: what was responsible for the killing of leaders in Africa like Gaddafi, without the interference of other African countries? Whereas the interference was coming from European countries, that the union created to come and be preventing Africa or to be fighting wars in Africa. The issue is no, because we subject ourselves to colonial rules, and so when the people come over here to come and do whatever they are doing, we sit quiet, because if I don't sit quiet, I will be removed from office. My account, which so much money I've kept in their country, will be freeze, and so on and so forth. These are the reasons behind the underdevelopment of Africa. I'll just give you another example. If all African leaders were able to get all the money that they are investing out of Africa and bring it back to Africa, invest here, I don't think African children will be going and dying in the Mediterranean Sea in order to be going for greener pasture in Europe. I remember in those days, in the 70s and so on, if they ask Cameroonians to go to France, they were asking you, what am I going to go and do in France? You understand? But today, people are struggling.
Young people are dying in the desert, dying in the sea, and so on, struggling to cross over to Europe for greener pastures. Doctor, what explains the fact that African countries in their great majority unable today to take that giant developmental step into industrialization? Some countries have embarked on industrialization visions, like in Cameroon we have Vision 2035, but these visions seem not to be yielding fruits. They seem to be ending only at the level of visions, and the giant developmental steps towards the transformation of raw materials in Africa by Africans are not forthcoming. Much of what Africa produces in terms of raw materials are still transported, are still exported abroad to Western nations, where they are transformed and then brought back into Africa and sold at exorbitant prices.
Yes, one of the reasons why we Africans countries are not really developing is that we neglect our human resources. We have a lot of human resources, you know that, Africans have a lot of human resources, but it depends on our government and so on. Take, for instance, our country, Cameroon. If the government of Cameroon should be able to be investigating and looking at who is who in Cameroon and finding out who are the best brains in Cameroon and so forth, and putting them in key positions and so on and so forth, that vision 2035 will be achieved without any big problem. You understand? But it depends who are those managing. We are not saying that they are bad people, but we are saying that they should be able to, our leaders should be able to look at Cameroonians. Where are they? What are they doing? Who is who here? In which country are you? Can you come back to Cameroon and let us do something? Can you come back to Africa? Let us do something for Africa. But if we allow the brain drain to continuously to be going to Europe and die in the Mediterranean Sea, and as long as you know it fully well that when our brothers and sisters they go over there, very few of them would like to return. Why? Because they offer them all the amenities and so on within the society there that you see, that they don't see the reason why they have to come back. When they look at the bad roads in Cameroon and the bad roads in Ghana or the bad roads in other African countries, they say, oh, let me sit there. But the issue is that, but you must have to love your continent, because if you, the bad roads, the good roads in Europe were created by people who also went through a lot of difficulties to make it to become what it is today. So let us all come back to Africa and see exactly what we can be able to, what we should be able to do. And again, if we identify potential Africans, we are all born with different skills and so on. You understand? It shouldn't be for many years. You see, you look at African government, African leaders. You see leaders. You see our brothers and sisters who are occupying positions in management in other places for 1,000 donkey years, and some of them, if you ask them what is the innovation that they are actually bringing, you don't see. You don't see. But if they should be able to research and then get to know so many of our brothers and sisters, Africans who are here, Cameroonians who are there, who are in this country, and they bring them back into the country and charge them with different tasks and so on and so forth, they will be able to deliver. And let me give you another typical example. If, for instance, we know that most African leaders, they have a lot of investment out of Africa. We know that very well. That is true. And if this investment should be, taken back into Africa. Take, for instance, let's just give an example that in our country, in Cameroon, our leaders, those people, those that have a lot of investment out of the country, they should be able to bring back their investment and pump it into Cameroon. That will create a lot of employment. That the economic crisis will certainly go away. We will have good roads, and we will have this and that. And how can they be able to invest it? Let the government call a meeting with them and tell them that, look, please, the government is suffering. Bring this money, bring this, and I will tell you, go and invest in the Northwest, go and invest in the Southwest, go and invest here, and then it will be tax-free for a period of time. And within that period, employ Cameroonians, change mindsets, and be able to do something. We will be able to achieve that agenda 2035, even within by 2026 or 2028. But is that possible? Because that
should be done to speed up regional integration in Africa, especially in the Central African sub-region, where it seems not to be working. In West Africa, the regional integration is working to a greater extent, but in Central Africa, the countries are still lagging behind in terms of facilitating movement between citizens of the countries of the sub-region.
Yeah, if you look at West Africa, if you're traveling to Ghana, to Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina, and so on, with these countries that I go through, you see, if you have the ECOWAS passport, it's easier to move, even without a passport. You have an ID card for some of the countries, like Ghanaians who travel freely to Burkina, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Togo, and so on, and Nigeria. But it will be difficult for sometimes within Central Africa, for us to, even with a thermal passport, to even move. It's difficult. But these are some of the challenges that if they don't uplift, they don't remove, they don't uproot all the barriers that are responsible for the movement of goods and services, there's not going to be possibility of people of any eventual growth to happen in Africa. What are services? You are able to be, that you are well qualified, you have a consultancy services somewhere in another African country, you should be able to go there freely and enter there and implement and provide the services and be able to come back to your country and people are able to stay in this country and successfully go and work in that country and come back without having a lot of hurdles and so on. Normally, a lot of restrictions, if they are in place, it is always difficult for growth to take place. You know that fully well. But if we start looking at how do we grow Africa and start removing these restrictions and so on, that's what we are expecting AFTA to be able to achieve. But if AFTA cannot achieve it, I don't really understand, because it is a lot of slogans and you see things are not really working and so on. But you also have to be very careful. Where is AFTA getting its money to be able to finance its being in place? Is it coming from developed countries? Is it coming from the World Bank? Is it coming from Africans contributing it? So where the money comes from, there are a lot of strings attached. And once strings are attached, you're supposed to dance according to the tune of whoever is giving you the money. So will they be able to allow AFTA or NATAN or other African countries to be able to implement the aspect of having the free passport? What has been the reason behind for many years now that the free passport was launched? We have the president of Rwanda who had it and other presidents, and they presented it on television. We saw it. But today, you and I, we are unable to have that passport. But I'm still moving up and down with my Cameroon passport. I'm not saying that I should not move my Cameroon passport, but I think that if we have that movement of services and having a common paper that when you present it, you should be able to pass. It's easier and faster. Do you know that even in African, Europeans will have the passage to go through into your country far more better than even Africans themselves into other African countries? It's a shame. It's a shame.
But we're going to round up with some issues concerning Cameroon. You're one of the organizers of the Ghana Peace Conference intended to contribute to the resolution of the problems, the security challenges in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. How far have you gone with that meeting, with the organization of that meeting, which is expected to bring some contribution to efforts to restore peace and normalcy in the northwest and southwest regions?
Normally, the first initiative is for our brothers and sisters, for us to come and meet and talk. So we have been able to, talk with all the various, with the different stakeholders and, involved in the crisis. And we believe that, if victims, because all of us are victims, if victims are able to come and sit and talk, they will be able to look for a way out of this thing. Then we will be able to, discuss positions and perspectives of various groupings and look at how can we move from here. And then we identify further steps to work towards mutual approaches. And then from there, we should be able to establish a representative group of people to officially represent and pilot the accepted approaches at various levels of the initiative. How far we've gone is that we have been able to go through all the different steps, and we have talked with the different people. I have been in Cameroon some time back last month. I have been going around holding meetings with different stakeholders, and we've even carried out the training of some of our stakeholders with whom we are going to work together in Ghana. At the level now, when I return to Ghana, we have been able to now finalize our proposals. We are now at the level of fundraising. Because normally to bring people to Ghana, we need to pay for their flight, we need to transport them, we need to lodge them, we need to take a lot, put in place a lot of logistics to ensure that the conference should move well. And our greatest interest is for peace to return to our country. Once there is peace, people should be able, then a lot of things will be able to happen. Once there is peace, justice will flourish. That one is very clear. In all African countries, if you don't have that atmosphere to be able to sit down and talk, it is difficult for you to even talk about justice. It is very difficult. So even if we look at it,
and that is why the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling for the immediate liberation of the presidents of the president of Mali and the prime minister of that country, who are being held by soldiers. They have been leading a transitional government, and of course there are calls coming from everywhere, from the African Union, from the EU, from the United States of America, for peace and the law to be respected in that country. Dr. Ndonwi Peter, CEO of Pan-African Organization for Research and Protection Violence on Women and Children, a non-governmental organization in the area of human rights and development in Africa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, and good night to all of you in Cameroon.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That would be it for today. Equinoxe Thanks.